edition of Super Talk Show as we invite Mr. Equity joining us from the United States. Now, Rotimi, he's a member of the recently admitted Harvard class of 2026. He was also a contestant in the Jeopardy Teens Tournament, and most importantly, he is an explorer in the fields of maternity medical research. Now, hear about all the tips that he has in store for you about college application and his experience since middle school. I'll see you then. Hello, Rotimi or Mr. Equity. Welcome to Super Talk Show. It's so nice to have you today. You're part of my dream guest list.
Thank you, Heidi. I appreciate you having me on the show today.
Yeah, thank you. To start, can you give us a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah. Okay, guys. Hey, I'm Rotimi. I am based in Alabama. I'm a senior in high school. I will be attending university next year. I'm in a family of 6. I am into a bunch of different things. I love playing soccer. I'm super passionate about equity, if you can't tell by my super name. That involves educational equity, socioeconomic equity, health equity, the whole like umbrella, I guess. I ultimately hope to become a physician. And I hope to use that position to advance equity in healthcare, do health policy and different health advocacy routes in addition to my work in the clinic. I have done some bio research. It was really fun. I'd love to do some stuff like that again. Done some work to promote COVID-19 vaccinations in my state. Yeah, that's a brief little intro about me.
Thank you so much. To start, I want to ask you a little bit about your research or your internship with, I think, UAB Department of Surgery.
Yes.
Really cool, how you presented, a presentation about, I believe, pregnancy. And can you give us an idea of how the research worked? What was included in the internship?
Yeah. So last summer, I did a research internship over at UAB Surgery. It was called the PRISM program. It's for underrepresented students to kind of get a taste of medicine because they don't only have these opportunities. So my specific research project, it was mentored, by the way, so I was under a surgeon. Mine was on necrotizing enterocolitis, and specifically I looked at the impact of zinc on stress impaired wound healing, some cells that we were growing. And so basically, the research process first, you have to learn about what you're researching. So at the beginning, I kind of did a lot of reading on PubMed and just online to kind of get an idea of cell culture because I had to be growing cells and taking care of them. Get an idea of what necrotizing enterocolitis is, what the current literature says on it, to get an idea of how zinc impacts certain metabolic pathways in the body. And then after that, I think that was about 1 or 2 weeks. So I did that. And after that, it kind of took me into the lab and I was able to kind of learn the steps of cell culture because, by the way, cell culture was developed initially with Henrietta Lacks cells. It's a great book. If you haven't read it, it's the Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. But essentially, so you guys get these cells from another company. And then you have to transfer them to a flask and you have to take care of them. So it's a whole process because every few days they grow so quickly. There's millions of them in the little flask. And so you have to take them out of the flask and then put them in the new ones to make sure that they keep growing and they don't die and keep them healthy. So that's something that I kind of learned to do for over a month. And then after that, for about 1 or 2 weeks, we created different treatments. My mentor helped do that. And then we kind of seeded and seeded is just when you take cells from one flask and put another flask. So we seeded the cells into some different flasks and gave them different treatments in those flasks. And then we did what's it called? We scratched them with the pipette tip to create an artificial wound. And then we imaged them using a microscope over 24 hours, kind of watch the wound healing occur. And then after that, I used the pictures from the microscope and I used some software. I can't remember what it's called, sorry, but I used some software to kind of calculate the change in area over time of the wound. And then I was able to kind of present my findings off of that. And so we had different treatments. And so the zinc treatment kind of had inconclusive data that we weren't able to get figured out at the end of the time. But with the cortisol treatments, we did find that the higher the dosage of cortisol, the longer the wound healing took in the cells.
Wow. So did you get to explore a new area of, I don't know what it's called, but was it something that wasn't explored before or?
Yeah, so pretty much with research, you have 2 goals. It's either to kind of discover something new or to confirm or like reject a previous person's findings. And so in this case, this was something that like we weren't aware of being done before, so we wanted to kind of be the first to explore it.
Wow, that's really cool. I have also another question about, I think, your early on high school experience. I um I searched up Jeopardy Teen Tournament, and I was able to
Mhm.
see you like with an interview on YouTube, and that was really cool. For Jeopardy, how did you really explore how did you really start working towards getting into the Jeopardy Teen Tournament? Because I think it requires a lot of knowledge to, ask these questions on stage in front of, many people on television.
So with Jeopardy, Jeopardy is something that my family has always watched like forever, for as long as I can remember. Every night at dinner, we watched Jeopardy, and I always enjoyed the show. I remember watching the kids tournament. Um, and then when I got into middle school, they had a test for teens. And so even though I was like, because the experience is for like high schoolers, but because I was an eighth grader, that would like, I would be revising freshman. So I was able to take the test. And so I did that, and I got invited to like an in-person audition. It was kind of like they used a computer to randomly select 200 people out of the people who passed the online test on an in-person audition. So I went to that. It was down in New Orleans, like a 5-6 hour drive. My family. And then I got to do like a mock Jeopardy game. I met some pretty cool kids. And then like 8 weeks later, they called me and said, "I made it on the show." In terms of preparing for Jeopardy, it's a bit strange because like there is a lot of people think there's a study guide or they tell you like the questions or categories. Like they don't really tell you anything. It's just kind of like anything is a fair game when you get up there. So I guess you just have to be a student of life. You have to really seek to learn from every experience because again, the categories can be anything. They can be sports, they can be popular media, they can be music, they can be history, art, like literally anything. So you just have to soak up knowledge from all your experiences. And I think that's something that prepared me very well for Jeopardy. Unlike a lot of the kids on the show, I actually had no trivia background. I was really passionate about learning in all my fields, even like when there was no reward for learning. So I guess it did pay off when there came time for an opportunity for me to get like a reward for my knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just got to know Jeopardy. I've seen it on social media a few times, and then when I looked inside how it really worked, it was very impressive because, as you mentioned, it went from, American history to like legal aspect to pop culture everywhere. So I guess to end the interview, as someone, who got accepted to Harvard and Yale, is there any last advice for the interview that you would give to the super audience out there?
Yeah, I have a few pieces of advice, actually. So this first one isn't my original piece of advice. I first got it from, or I heard it from Ray Sawyer. He was a Morehead Kane scholar. You see, he was a Fulbright fellow or scholar. I can't remember which title it is. And then he currently works at Google. But he said to focus on things that are impactful, not impressive. And I heavily, heavily second that. I think a lot of people get caught up in the college admissions game trying to do all these titles and do all these things. But honestly, like titles don't matter. How many clubs you're in doesn't really matter. What matters is your impact. How did you change people's lives for the better? So do activities and passions that are people oriented, that are impact oriented. Try and maximize those impacts. My second piece of advice would be to kind of view the college admissions process holistically. It's not the end all be all. I think a lot of people get obsessed with the idea of getting into schools like Harvard and Yale. That was never my dream, really. Like I never really pictured myself going to either of those schools. I just kind of applied for giggles. I never really cared about the college admissions process too much in high school. And I think that's a very big thing because in doing so, you explore your own passions. Don't just do clubs because you think they'll get you into a college. Like if you don't get into a college, you'll just be miserable because you wasted all this time. Find things that you actually enjoy, find your passions, pursue those, and then you know what? If you do end up getting into a school like Harvard Yale, that's great. Congratulations. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. They barely accept anybody. And so it's just being able to understand that at the end of the day, a lot of it is just chance and it's really, really hard to get in. So don't let that become your only goal in life. And then another thing I would say is kind of like along the lines of that, you shouldn't be trying to prove yourself to anybody else. Along the way, there are going to be people who doubt you or may kind of like talk negatively about you or underestimate you, but
Mhm.
that shouldn't really matter to you because the point of this is self-betterment. As I like to say, you're trying to do what's best for you. You're trying to be the best version of you possible. And so that's not dependent on anybody else around you, what they may think, what they may say. So make sure that you're out there working every day to pursue your goals and your passions. Don't ever get distracted by what others may have inside for you. And I guess, that would be my advice.
Wow, thank you so much, Rotimi, for being here, and Mr. Equity, because I think that was one of the most insightful interview I've ever had here in Super Talk Show. Thank you so much for being a guest. Maybe see you next time.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye.